Hey guys, let's talk about last night's episode of The Blacklist. And like I said in my last review, the episode ended with a big gunshot going off, and we were all to assume that Anslo killed Red's sidekick, and it turns out he didn't. And but he quickly grabs Lizzie and holds the gun to her head. And of course, Red is not going to have any of this. So he grabs Wrestler and he puts a gun to his head and he says, "Give me the code so I can get out of here and I will trade myself in for Lizzie." And Wrestler does it. So now Anslo and his crew have Red and they're off and running. And when they take off, Lizzie is also in the ambulance that they've taken off in. And what they're doing is they're removing the chip from Red's head, or the side of his neck into his shoulder, so that the FBI can't track him anymore. And they're successful, and Lizzie ends up getting out of the ambulance truck and pulls over some random guy, holds him at gunpoint and says, "Follow that ambulance." And of course, when they take the chip out, the tracking device, they start following some guy on a motorcycle, and then the chase ends. So we pretty much find out that Anslo is working for somebody else. And this man is Crowley. And he's played by Alan Alda, which was kind of cool to see him come back. And it sounds like Crowley and Red used to be in the same organization back in the day. And in fact, Crowley has known this whole time that Red has been working with the FBI. And apparently he could have had him taken out at any moment, but he has chosen not to. And, apparently Red has some important information and they know what will happen with this information if Red dies. So Crowley, I guess, is like, well, they don't really want that information getting out. But then he says to Anslo, look, because Anslo's like, listen, I did my part. I found Red. I got him here. Now I want to be able to torture him because he has his own problems with Red. And Crowley was like, all right, well, I guess do what you got to do. And he leaves. So I'm like, okay, so are you now okay with the information getting out? Wasn't really sure on that. But Anslo, pretty much just talks some nonsense into Red's ear. And then, of course, Red takes his arms, throws them around his neck, and stabs him with some shivvy that he made while he was pretty much like on death's door hanging from the ceiling. It's kind of cool. But, Red, of course, gets out of the dilemma that he's in. And the first phone call he makes is to Lizzie. And, from the very beginning of this season, Red has had this interest in Lizzie. And, the big speculation is he her father? And I mean, to me personally, I think that would be the lamest revelation because it's too predictable. And, she finally has this moment where she asks him point blank on the phone, "Are you my father?" And he does this long pause for dramatic effect, everybody. And then he says no. And then he proceeds to say, "Be careful of your husband." And he hangs up the phone. And of course, back in episode 1, the pilot, we got glimpses of her husband that he could potentially be shady, and it led to nothing. So, of course, I think they threw a red herring in all that to make it seem like he was, yes, just an innocent school teacher who was being framed by Reddington, but clearly something is up with his husband. But to me, like, that being the last line of the episode, I was kind of like, really? I mean, didn't we already have these questions from the first episode? So I don't know what kind of a cliffhanger that is. It didn't really work for me. Meanwhile, all of her other people were running around like chickens with their head cut off trying to find Reddington. And the new mission is that Reddington is target number 1 on the blacklist. Like, he trumps all other people that are on this blacklist. And members of the FBI also found out that they've been under surveillance. Somebody has been watching them this entire time. So, of course, they don't know who's been watching them and who's got surveillance all over them. So, it's kind of like they're figuring there's a mole in the department now. And we don't really know who that is. They kind of hint at Wrestler, but, obviously they're just going to leave that up in the air for a while. Now, the other interesting thing that was kind of going on with this episode was we all know that somebody has been watching Lizzie and her husband in their home. And I believe they broke in the very first episode, or maybe it was the second episode of the season, and they put all their surveillance camera up in their house, and they've been watching them. And some creepy dude eating an apple has been staring at them through the monitors. And we find out that through, all this rigmarole, that the person who has also been surveilling them has been linked to this number that is coming from the house across the street from Lizzie. So Lizzie breaks in, she sees all this camera stuff that has her house under surveillance, and her and this dude get into a gun battle, and she shoots and kills him. Then all of a sudden this woman comes in who's kind of cool, and is Red's cleaner. And she's like this old biddy, but she comes in and she's like, got on her latex gloves, and she's like, I've got 2 directives, and one is to clean up this mess and take care of you. And she's like, I plan on doing both. So they end up cleaning up the crime scene. Then her and all of her crazy dudes go in and they break Reddington, or they help to go to the building where Reddington is being held, but Reddington escapes on his own, and now he's off in the wind. And like I said, he made that phone call to Lizzie. They had their one moment of heart to heart, and he's now off and running. So, it was a good episode for its mid-season finale, the part 2, Anslo was the big bad guy in the first episode, and then it turns out that this guy Crowley is the bigger big bad who works for some organization that, has had tabs on all of them this entire time. What it is that Reddington has, who knows? Who is Reddington really to Lizzie? Who knows? What is her husband up to? Who knows? There are a lot of big question marks going into the second half of this season. Apparently the numbers were huge for its season finale or mid-season finale. That's good for the show. I'm happy for them. I just find that the show's good. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's exceptional, but it was a thrilling, entertaining episode nonetheless. All right, guys, that's been my review of The Blacklist. I'll see you when the show returns after the winter break. Bye.